Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Monday once again. Welcome to Conversations with Chosen Pen. I am Dr. Anissa Short, and I am here with you once again in the studio alone. As we said so many times before, Dr. Norma McLaughlin wears a lot of hats, and because of that, her life is pulled here and there. And so she won't be with us today, but I am sure she'll be back next week. We're going to get started today with our continued conversation about forgiveness and authors who have written books concerning the topic. We have another phenomenal guest with us today in the studio. But before we meet her, I want to remind you, you can always follow us on Chosen Pen via Facebook. We have a YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe. In doing so, you'll be able to catch us live and, of course, to revisit some of our previous episodes. And we are excited to announce that Chosen Pen has relaunched its book club. Every first Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a private community of avid book readers, and we're discussing a topic or a book each and every month. We kicked this thing off on just yesterday. It was phenomenal. Everybody had a great time, and we're looking forward, of course, to continuing it. Every first Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you would love to be a part of the Chosen Pen Book Club, be sure to contact us via Chosen Pen on Facebook so that we can go ahead and get you added. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you all our guest for tonight, Miss Mary Frankie Barnes. Many people know her as Mary Barnes. Those who are intimately close with her call her Frankie. Either way, she's an author. She's our guest. Hello, Miss Barnes. Thank you again for being a part of our conversation today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Happy to be here.
Dr. Norma thinks the world of you. I know you all have had a long-standing relationship, but for those of us who are just meeting you for the first time, give us a little information about who Miss Frankie really is.
Well, Miss Frankie, as most people call me, or Mama Frankie, I get that too. I was born and raised in Kannapolis, North Carolina. I'm a home girl. I have 3 daughters, 6 grands, and 2 great grands. I've been married this coming April, 55 years, to the love of my life, Robert. We call him Bobby Barnes, and we reside here in Kannapolis, as I said. I I've done a lot of different things in my journey. However, I used to work in the Kannapolis City School System. I was known as the story lady there. I told lots of stories at the different elementary schools. My children, of course, kept me busy telling stories to them, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was very, very rewarding. I A couple of years ago went back to school and got my bachelor's degree at Grace Biblical Seminary and Institute in Christian counseling and biblical studies, and I love that as well. I enjoy encouraging people. That makes me happy. I'm a good listener, and I don't mind praying for anybody.
Absolutely love that. Let me ask you something. We know we did a preview of had a conversation in advance about what this was going to be about, but there's one point that you made reference to with regards to being a storyteller. You're being
Yes.
very active in the school system, and you share stories with children. Is it safe to say you read books to them, or did you just do audible stories from history and times past? How did that work?
Well, of course, I had to read to them some of the times, but I had the opportunity. I don't know if you remember Jackie Torrance, a famous Black story lady. I had the opportunity to go and meet her at a conference, and it was 2 stories that she told at that conference, and I don't know, but it became Rhema in me. And when I came back to my school, I started telling those stories just off the top of my head, not reading them, and it kind of sparked something in me. So I got me some Jack Tale books and things like that, and I would learn the stories so that I could be animated when I told the stories. So that's basically why they were calling me the story lady,
Okay. Okay. So
because
then
I.
So it sounds like to me you are a walking audio book is what it is, right? So just like
I
we're using it now, you were just doing it then. You just had it, you memorized it and you shared it.
Yeah.
Was this for primary school students?
They were primary, but I got an invitation several years back in the month of February for Black History Month to come up to the train station in Kannapolis to tell stories. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me it would be adults, but I put on my little African garb, and when I walked in, it was full of dignitaries in Kannapolis and teachers, and and I'm sitting there, my stomach was about to, but when they called me up, I remembered how when I would tell the children's stories, they could pull it out of me just because of the interest they had on their faces. And so when I got up to the front and I'm looking out at these people, and the first story I told was Old Dry Fry. That was a favorite. Well, it was a Caucasian gentleman in the back. It grabbed him. And I told the story to him. Everybody else was listening, but he was the one I told it to because his facial features just it helped to keep me fueled. And that right there was something, because I also worked as not work, but I used to go every summer to the library here. I was a friend of the library. So in the summertime, I would go up and they would gather the children in one room and they did a campfire. That's what they call it. It wasn't a fire, but the kids would sit around my feet and I would, tell stories to them. And I used to do creative storytelling in the school system. The kids would sit around and just to get their mind going, I would start a story and I would say, now, when I point to you, you got to tell me what's coming next. So I'd start the story once I got it really juicy and I could tell they were in it. I would say, and I'd point to a child and they could go right on with it. And then they would point to another. So that was fun too.
You know what, Miss Frankie, I'm going to say this here lately for the last, I don't know, several months now with Chosen Pen, we've had a lot of focus on childhood literacy, the importance of childhood literacy. And I don't know if Dr. Norma has told you this, but Chosen Pen has partnered and adopted a school in Johannesburg, South Africa. So
I've been reading about it.
We're working to get them revamp, or I guess you could say renovate the library they have. And then we're going to be taking books to South Africa. But not only that, maybe 2 summers ago, while we were in the midst of the pandemic, we did a workshop series, a summer feature of authors of children's books. So it's been going on for a while. What you have just shared in your with exuberance, I should add, of your experience in working with the kids and telling us stories, what you've done is like a walking audiobook is what you have been. That what you did and with regards to sharing the stories and engaging the children and even having them participate in the storytelling process is another unique way by which to improve the literacy of children. Would you not agree with that? Did you know?
For sure. I had an opportunity in 2005 to travel to Tanzania, Africa. It was a mission trip, and I went through my church, but we gathered children around and we were doing a malaria test for kids, but I had to entertain the children because they knew my gift for telling stories. And I had an interpreter, so I was able to tell some of the old folklore stories that I would tell at my school to the kids in Africa, and my interpreter would interpret it. And I just thoroughly enjoyed that as well.
I could only imagine. I remember as a child myself, remember our time in elementary school, we would go to the library and there was always someone there to read a book, and I can remember vividly how the pages turned. And if the book cover had the plastic on it, how it would crackle and pop, and how the teacher or the librarian took her time to give different voices to the characters.
Yes.
Even
bring them alive.
Yeah, even my own mother, in the course of my raising, she was very instrumental and is still with my nephews and taking care of them when they were small. And so my oldest nephew, my sister and I laugh about it to this day. There was one book he loved for my grandmother to read, his grandmother to read. But then he wanted my sister to read the book to him. And so she was just reading and he kept saying, "No, you're not doing it right." And she was like, what do you mean I'm not doing? He says, "You're not doing it right. That's not how it's supposed to sound." And so we laugh about that. Now he's 17 years old. We laugh about that now because his grandmama would add, everybody had a voice, and that's what he was looking for. He knew
Right.
who the character was by the voice. So needless to say, my sister and I couldn't get it right because we couldn't do it like Mama did, right? So I think that's great. Let's shift gears here. So you've gone from being the storyteller, memorizing stories to be able to share with youth and adults and add your own flair of personality to it, and then engaging young people into the creative process of telling stories to actually writing a book of your own. So Miss Frankie, tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, the title of my book is 50 Years Through and Can Still Say I Do. And it's basically my story, because what I did was share my story through my eyes. I'm sure if my husband had written the way he saw our 50 years, and at that time, I think we had been married 51, 52 years, because it was 2019, 51 years. And so I really started out journaling my life. And before I knew it, I had pages and pages. And I have as I said, people call me Mama Frankie. And so one of my, I call her my surrogate daughter. She's from Maryland. She kept encouraging me. She said, "Mom, that can be a book. Keep on writing." So I shared some of the pages with her. "Mom, that's good. Keep on writing." And I'm like, okay. And so I began to actually share my heart, and some of the things in it disclosed that before I ever published it, I gave it to my husband, the manuscript, and I told him to please read it. And I watched him as he read it. And I said, if you don't want me to publish that book, because like I said, I did disclose some things that, because people think 50 years, ooh, wow, wow. But we went through 50 years. We had to go through the wilderness, I call it, of a marriage. We had to go through, every marriage does. But my husband and I dated for 4 years. I was 14, he was 16. So we dated for 4 years and got married. And so we had to go through that time and pretty much learn really meant to be in love, but we did love each other. And I thank God that it was a solid love that we had for each other. So the things I shared in the book, some of them were things that I wasn't sure if he could deal with the public reading, but he read it. And I said, if you say don't publish it, I won't. And he said, no, you told the truth. But anyway, so I got the book published, and he would go with me actually to book signings, and people would ask him questions as well. And he was willing to talk about it like I did. But, through it all, the book, honestly, if you can open your mind up, put yourself in it, it can teach you some things, because there are things in my book that I wrote about that had I known, I may have been able to go through that wilderness period without so much pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I've been married this year. For me, May 30th will make 25 years. 25 years of
Okay.
marriage. And so my mom and dad have been married they've been married 54 years, and we'll be in 55 years in March. And so my grandmother, my mother's mother, and my grandfather were married 50 years when he passed away. My grandparents, my dad's parents were married for a long period of time. So I come from a history of people being married and being married for a long periods of time. But Miss Mary, I'm going to tell you, unless you've been married, you really don't know what it is to be married. You can see it. You can see it. You can look at another couple and say, they seem like they're so happy together.
And that's what people do.
I know. Oh, that's what I want. He's so into her, that kind of thing. Is, oh, he just cherishes her. And that's just the outer. And it's not to say that doesn't occur, but it was conversations with my grandmother, my mother's mother. I was closest to her. And I knew at the time, of course, granddaddy had died, and she got married really young at 16. And so we started talking about things that happened in the course of their marriage. And I would go, say what? And she'll go, yep, that happened. It did happen. Well, what did you do, grandmama? She said, I forgave him. He asked me to forgive him, or they asked me to forgive him. And We forgave him, and you forgave him. She says, yep, that's what the good book said. The Bible says I needed, if I was going to be forgiven, I needed to forgive. And in my mind, I'm thinking, man, there's no way in the world I would have, I just wouldn't have been married anymore. I just wouldn't have been married anymore. But when you said wilderness experiences, anything that's of value, anything that's solid, goes through a lot,
Absolutely.
I believe your story, and although I have not read it, I believe anyone who's been married 50 years or more has a story to share. And a lot of people who are endeavoring to be married need to sit at the feet of people who have been married for a while so that we can get the nuggets.
Yeah.
So when things happen, we could say, this is nothing out of the norm because Miss Mary and her husband had to deal with stuff like this. Or such and such and his wife had to deal with this kind of stuff. And so if they got through it, we can get through it too. But a lot of times we don't want to share anything, and then we think it's something brand new, and we let it go before we can even get to the good part, of being married. I'm looking forward to reading your book after saying all of that myself. So what would be one thing that you would suggest? Would you suggest your book to be for people who are anticipating getting married, or would you suggest it to be for people who are already newly married, or just married people, period?
Well, just from the feedback that I've gotten, it would help those who are looking forward to getting married, but those who are already married and are going through, it would help them as well. Just as you said, a lot of times because of what you go through, or when you're in the wilderness, you don't necessarily want people to know that. But to me, it's important that we keep it real. And everything that shines is not gold. I mean, look, I'm 70, but keep it to the real. And so I believe when I wrote that book, it was freeing for me, because I had hidden all of those things, and so it gave me a freedom that I did not have because I let it go, and I don't have a problem letting people know, oh yeah, I know he loved me, but this wasn't an easy journey. But what I did know was anything worth having was worth fighting for.
That's good.
And you can tell whether or not you got a good man or a good woman, and what you have to do is roll up your sleeves of faith, and you fight the fight of faith to hold on. And so, yeah, I think my book, and it has helped because I've had some feedback. I had a young lady who was dating this guy, and he wasn't quite acting right, but then she shared how she was trying to land him, and I gave her some tips, and she backed up and she did exactly what I said. And within a year, he was asking her to marry him, to marry her rather. So I think it could help anybody if you listen. A lot of people don't want to necessarily take advice.
Right.
They rather learn the hard way.
So it sounds like your book, because we've been focusing a lot here at Chosen Pen on forgiveness, and the authors that have written books and told their stories have talked about forgiveness from varied vantage points. But due to life circumstances, there have been some, fiction written with forgiveness as the underlying theme. But it sounds like, from what you're sharing, without sharing it all, is that in your 50 years, despite the wilderness experiences, despite the challenges, your marriage is solid, and that forgiveness was a very instrumental part of building that, solidifying that. Is that fair to say?
Oh, for sure. And I might say too, I told you I was 14 and he was 16. We started dating. Well, believe it or not, we had this pact that because we went to the same school, and he lived near the school. I had to ride the bus home. So if he did anything that he thought somebody else would get back to me with, he would tell me before they got to me. And we promised if we admitted things to each other, we would always ask forgiveness. And so we did that all through our dating life. And then when we got married, it was pretty much the same thing. If he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and and I asked him about it, and he knew I knew, if he would admit it and say, I'm sorry, I would forgive him, simply because that was something we decided to do. And as I said, we've been married, we'll be 55 years in April. We don't believe in going to sleep angry with each other. The word of God says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And we could be mad as I'll get out throughout the day, but honey child, we did not go to bed angry with each other. I was in Cancun. We were in Cancun on an elevator, and this couple was there on their honeymoon. And they were talking to us, and they asked how long we had been married. And we had been married 40-something years at that point. And they said, how do you do that? And so I shared with her, don't ever go to bed angry. And then I smiled and said, makeup sex. And so she started laughing. And she said, oh, I can do that. I can do that.
She could do that then because she was fresh in the marriage. And when you get into the thing,
thank you very much.
Right. I remember being younger.
Even today, my husband and I, we go to bed each night, and we sleep in a king bed, but we would fill in the bed at night to grab one another's hand to this day.
That's sweet.
Because we do love each other. We get on each other's nerves. We might get angry, but we forget about it, and before you know, we're still back at that same old thing. And honestly, that's what walking in forgiveness does. You don't hold it.
Right. Oh my God, this has been so good, Miss. Look, this is not what I expected from this conversation, but I could just talk to you all night, but we don't have 30 minutes. I love what you're saying, and people need to hear more of that. I mean, I loved the transparency of my grandmother when she talked with me and I asked questions. She just told us matter of factly, no, it was not easy. It was hard. And there were days I cried and that kind of thing. So then, of course, years later, with me being married, my circumstance or situations that we had in our marriage were not the mirror image of what my grandmother dealt with. But I said it was good for me to have had that conversation, because I was like, if grandmama could forgive granddaddy for that, I can't say I can't forgive him. Why can't I not? It's in my DNA to be able to do that, because she taught me that lesson. She said it's not going to always be pretty, but you got to hang on and make it right. And so I've had a great marriage. My marriage is good. It's a good marriage. But I just know that lifestyle of forgiving, it has to start with the choice or the decision to forgive in the onset.
And you got to understand, forgiveness is really not for the person you're forgiving. It's for you.
It is, right. It is.
It sets you free.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. It absolutely does.
We can forgive, and they're going on with their lives, and we're getting eaten up on the inside with what's aggravating and hurting us. So the forgiveness is all about you.
Yeah, that's good. I need to host a marriage retreat and have you and your husband come tell y'all story. That's probably what we're going to have to do. Get y'all book, have y'all come and do a Q&A session on the beach. So since I know you like the beach. So with regards to your book, I have it scrolling that your book can be purchased on Amazon. Tell us the title again, if you will, please.
50 years through and can still say I do. Because I would marry him again today if he asked me.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. So your book can be purchased on Amazon, 50 years through, and I still say I do. But if they want an autographed copy.
50 years through. It's 50 years through and can still say I do.
Well, let me put this down because I just jacked that up real good. Hold on. Let me put this on here. Is 50 spelled out?
Yes.
Okay. 50 is spelled F-I-F-T-Y. 50 years through, and I still say I do.
No, look.
Pull it over a little bit more, up closer to your computer. And I can still say, oh, I love that. Okay.
Got it. It's not that I can. It's just 50 years through and can still say I do.
Okay. Because you would marry him all over again.
I would.
That's good. That's good. So now they could get their copy through Amazon. Then they can also, if they want a signed autograph copy, we have down here, they can send you the funds of $20 via paypal.me/01148. And the book is
absolutely.
Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. Any last words about your book you'd like to share to those who might be viewing now or later?
I would say if you would like some good advice, buy the book. If you like to just read a love story because it's a love story seen through my eyes, like I told Dr. Short, that if my husband wrote it, he probably have a whole different version of the way he saw our marriage. So I made clear on the front of my book, it says our love story seen through my eyes. And one of the I had some bookmarks made that says our true love is a journey. And I say is because we're still on the journey.
That's
It's a
good.
journey, not a destination, because we haven't arrived yet.
That
True
sounds so
love.
good.
Yeah, true love is a journey, not a destination.
I love every bit of that. I'm just all excited. Now I'm gonna get a copy of your book. I'm gonna go ahead and order it. I think I'm gonna get me an autographed copy so you can write a note in there like I'm your really good friend. And then I'm gonna read it for myself. I'm so serious about, I'm serious about me personally, about people having quality relationships, not just in a marriage situation. But I think that's something we miss in our communities now is quality, long-standing relationships. But even so, because even with marriages, because the marriage union is the foundation of our community and our society. So because there's a serious disconnect, or I think either a disconnect or misunderstanding of what marriage is supposed to be like, because we don't have people like you and your pouring into those of us that are younger. We need that. So this has been a joy. I do miss Dr. Norma. Don't get me wrong. It would have been great to have her here, but I'm glad I was here by myself with you today.
Well, I appreciate you. And I thank you so much. And you thank Norma for me for the invite.
I will do just that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for hanging out with us in this space. We appreciate you joining us each and every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. Conversations with Chosen Pen. Our author today was Miss Mary Frankie Barnes. As we said already, her book can be purchased through Amazon, or you can connect with her by reaching out to her via the information we provided on the screen. If each and every week, rather, at 6 p.m., we are here with someone special and someone phenomenal and some exciting information to share. So feel free to jump on every Monday night. Follow us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. And last but certainly not least, if you'd like to be a part of the Chosen Pen Book Club, get in touch with us through Facebook so we can add you to that community. Thank you again, Miss Frankie. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.